I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Stephanie and I had been married for about 8 years now, and for most of that time I thought we had a pretty normal life, 2 kids, a decent house, and a shared routine that mostly worked. Yeah, she could be bitchy and dismissive when she was stressed, but I figured that was just her way of dealing with everything. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. Looking back, maybe I was fooling myself. It started with little things. Stephanie been more distant lately, more irritated when I tried to talk to her about the kids or work. She'd snap at me over nothing, act like I was wasting her time. I chalked it up to her stress over her job and the kids' schedules. But then there were the odd changes: missing jewelry, mysterious phone calls she'd hide from me, hurried trips out of town that I wasn't supposed to know about. Nothing huge, but enough to make me feel uneasy. One day, I decided to check the home security footage. I'd been suspicious for a while, especially after I noticed her sneaking out late after the kids had gone to bed. I figured maybe she was having an affair, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions without proof. So I pulled up the DVR recordings and started scrolling through. That's when I saw it, footage from the local softball field. It was late evening and I saw Stephanie, my wife, going into the equipment shed with someone. I froze the frame. It wasn't just someone, though. It was the coach, a young guy named Ryan who's been coaching our daughter's team. What I saw next made my stomach drop. Stephanie and Ryan were kissing, full-on making out, inside the equipment shed. The clip was short, maybe only 30 seconds, but enough to make my blood run cold. I replayed it a few times, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't just a quick kiss. There was a lot of tongue, hands gripping each other. It was obvious they'd been doing a lot more than just talking about baseball. I was stunned. My wife, who always acted like she was better than everyone else, cheating on me with her daughter's coach in a storage shed after practice. That's some soap opera shit right there. I couldn't believe it. I felt this mix of rage, betrayal, and sadness swirling inside me. I never thought she was capable of such a thing, especially not with someone so young and pathetic as Ryan. And right there in the middle of the field, like it was just some secret rendezvous. I told myself I had to see more. I pulled out my phone, looked up the practice schedule, and checked the camera footage from the days around that event. Sure enough, I saw her going to the field a few times, always alone at first, but then more frequently with Ryan present. It was like she was hiding something and she was trying to keep it secret. I felt anger bubble up, but I also felt this crushing sense of betrayal. I thought I knew her. I thought she loved me. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me in such a blatant, reckless way? I kept thinking about it over and over, stunned that I had missed all the signs. The worst part: I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure what was worse, finding out the truth or actually facing her. I wasn't ready for the explosion that was coming, but I knew I had no choice. That night I sat there staring at the screen, replaying that kiss, feeling my stomach churn. The trust I had was shattered, and now I was left with this gnawing doubt about everything: her, my marriage, our life. What did I do to deserve this? How did I miss all the signs? And most of all, what comes next? That's when I realized this wasn't just about a fling or a mistake. It was about the fact that my wife, Stephanie, had lied and betrayed me in the worst way possible. And I knew I had to decide whether I was going to forgive her, confront her, or cut my losses. But one thing was certain: I wasn't going to let this go easily. Not without a fight. The next morning, I woke up with the image of the footage burned into my mind. I kept replaying it, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. I couldn't believe I'd missed all the signals, how she'd been acting lately. The cold shoulder, the hurried phone calls, the secretive trips. I had blamed it on stress and her busy schedule, but deep down, I knew she was hiding something more significant. The fact that she would cheat on me in broad daylight with her daughter's coach just felt like the ultimate betrayal. That day, I decided I needed answers. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I needed to confront her. I didn't want to do it immediately, though. I knew she'd deny everything, spin some bullshit story, lie her way out of it like she always did. But I had enough evidence to back up what I saw. I was going to get the truth no matter what. So I waited until she left for her work meeting, which I knew was just an excuse to get out of the house so she could see Ryan again. When she was gone, I went into her closet, grabbed her phone, and started scrolling through her messages. I found texts that confirmed my suspicions, flirty, suggestive messages, hidden between her and Ryan, mostly late at night. She was lying about her whereabouts, and she knew I was onto her. That's when I saw the message that cut me to the core. She had told Ryan she loved him, and he responded with some cocky remark about how they'd always find a way to be together. That's when I realized this wasn't just a one-time fling. It was a relationship. I didn't think I could hold it all in anymore. When she finally called, I asked her to come home early. I needed to see her face to face to confront her. She arrived looking smug, like she thought she had everything under control. I was furious, but I kept my voice calm, at least on the surface. "So, Stephanie," I started, trying to keep my tone steady. "I know about Ryan. I saw the footage. I know you've been seeing him behind my back." She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "Oh, come on, John, you're overreacting. It's not what you think. It's just a stupid mistake. It doesn't mean anything." I felt my blood boil. "A mistake? You're screwing your daughter's coach in the equipment shed after practice and you call it a mistake? Don't bullshit me. I saw the videos. I saw the texts." "How long has this been going on? How many times?" She shrugged, trying to act like she didn't care. "Look, I was stressed. He was there for me. It was just sex, John. That's all it was. You think I love him? Please, I don't even like him." That's when I lost it. I've been calm up to that point, but hearing her lie so blatantly pushed me over the edge. I told her I wasn't buying it, that I knew she was lying and that I wanted the truth. Her face twisted into a sneer, her eyes flashing with disdain. "Why do you care? You're so goddamn boring." I needed someone who actually knows how to make me feel alive, not some predictable, dull husband. "Ryan makes me feel something. Maybe you should try it sometime instead of acting like you own me." I was stunned. I'd never seen her so openly hostile, so dismissive. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but I also knew I couldn't just walk away. Not now. I told her she was full of shit, that she'd crossed the line and I was done playing nice. I told her I needed some time alone to think. But inside, I was already planning what I was going to do next. How? I was going to get her out of my life for good. That night was the worst I'd ever had to endure. She stayed silent most of the evening, avoiding eye contact, acting like she hadn't just betrayed me in the worst possible way. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, feeling a mix of rage, heartbreak, and betrayal. The woman I loved, she'd turned into a stranger, someone capable of lying and cheating behind my back, with a kid who was supposed to be our daughter's coach. It was like all my worst fears had come true. I kept thinking about my options. Did I confront her again? Did I pack up and leave? Could I even trust her anymore? Every part of me wanted to rip her apart, to make her feel as small and worthless as I felt at that moment. But I knew I had to be smart. I had to think this through, because once I made my move, there was no going back. My mind was racing, trying to come up with a plan, knowing full well that my world had just been turned upside down in a way I'd never imagined. The following days were a blur. I kept replaying that footage, those texts, every lie I knew she told. Stephanie was acting like nothing had happened, like she was the innocent victim in all of this. She'd smile her bitchy little smirk when I'd confront her, deny everything with that same dismissive attitude, like I was supposed to accept her bullshit explanations. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. I decided I needed to gather more proof. If I was going to do something about her, I had to be sure. So I started checking the security cameras on my own, even setting up some additional cameras around the house. I wanted to catch her in the act or see if she was planning to slip away again. I also kept a close eye on our daughter, Lily, and her training schedule. That's how I learned when Stephanie was sneaking off to the field again, always alone, always at odd hours. She'd go out, spend some time in the equipment shed with Ryan, and come back pretending everything was fine. One afternoon, I followed her. I told her I needed to talk, and she scoffed, acting like I was bothering her. I asked her where she was going, and she snapped at me. "I'm just going to the gym, John. Mind your own business." But I knew better. I drove to the field, parked a little distance away, and waited. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, I saw her walking toward the softball field. My stomach clenched, and I felt that familiar mixture of anger and heartbreak. I watched from behind a tree as she slipped into the equipment shed. Then I saw Ryan's figure follow her in. I couldn't hear anything, but I didn't need to. Their body language said it all. I snapped some pictures with my phone and slipped back into my car. My hands were trembling, but I kept my head clear. I had enough now. Enough proof to finally do something. I knew I couldn't keep pretending, not after all this. I had to confront her for real, this time with everything on the table. When I finally told her I knew, her face twisted into this nasty sneer again. She tried to deny it, of course, but her voice was shakier. I laid out everything, the footage, the texts, the fact that I followed her. I told her I had all the evidence I needed to end this farce. That's when she finally snapped back at me, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her and trying to make herself the victim. Her reactions were like a mask slipping off piece by piece. She called me insecure, jealous, crazy. She said I was suffocating her, that she needed something more from life, from herself, that she was tired of pretending to be the good wife. I felt my jaw tighten and I stared at her, trying to keep my anger in check. I told her she was full of shit, that I wasn't going to be made out to be the villain when she was the one screwing around, that I deserved honesty, not lies and betrayal. She looked at me, her bitchy eyes narrowing, and then she did something I didn't expect. She started crying. Not just a little tear here or there, full-blown tears like she was the victim. She sobbed about how stressed she was, how she didn't mean for everything to get so out of hand, how she was just trying to find some happiness. That was her excuse, the same one she kept spinning. That she was missing out, that she was stuck in a marriage that was more about routine than love. It hit me hard. Seeing her cry like that, knowing it was just manipulation, made me sick. I wanted to believe her for a second, to feel sorry for her, but I knew better. All I felt was numb. That numbness turned into cold rage. I realized then that I couldn't keep pretending she was just a victim. She chose this. She made her bed. That night I decided I couldn't stay in the same house with her anymore. I told her I was leaving the next day. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I couldn't be around someone who'd lie to my face, cheat on me in the most humiliating way, and then try to make me feel guilty for catching her. I packed some of my things, told her she could stay if she wanted, but I wasn't going to be part of this anymore. In that moment, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. I knew I was doing the right thing, but it still hurt like hell. I had loved her, believed in us, and now I was faced with a woman who had thrown everything away for some fleeting excitement. I kept asking myself how it got so bad, how I missed the signs, and why I was even surprised. I had always thought of her as a strong, bitchy woman who knew what she wanted. Turns out, what she wanted was to cheat, lie, and get away with it. As I left the house that night, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd ever feel normal again. Whether I'd find someone who could actually stick by me, who wouldn't betray me like this. It was a long road ahead, but I knew one thing for sure. I'd never trust her again, not after what she did, and I'd never forget the pain of realizing the woman I loved had been cheating on me with our daughter's coach. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Moving out, packing up what I could, trying to keep my head straight while everything else seemed to fall apart. Every time I saw my daughter, Lily, I felt this terrible guilt. She was only 9, so innocent, and I hated the idea that her world was being turned upside down because of her mother's betrayal. Stephanie stayed in the house that first night, refusing to leave, throwing tantrums, crying and yelling about how I was ruining everything. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was the one who was tearing us apart, that she was just looking for happiness. But I felt nothing but disgust. I had made my decision, though. I was done. I couldn't stay married to a woman who lied and cheated behind my back, especially with someone who was supposed to be a mentor to our daughter. That whole situation with Ryan made my stomach turn more than anything else. The idea that she'd screw someone so inappropriate, so blatantly, right there in that equipment shed, just made me want to vomit in anger. The next couple of days were pure chaos. I started strategies to figure out what I was going to do about everything. Legal stuff, custody, whatever it took. I wanted full custody of Lily, no question. I knew I'd have to prove Stephanie's unfitness, especially considering her blatant infidelity and the way she'd lied to everyone, including her own kid. I also knew I needed to cut her out of my life completely for my sanity and well-being. During that time, I discovered some more disturbing details. Apparently, the coach Ryan wasn't just a casual fling. I found out from a few friends that they'd been meeting regularly, even during her supposed work hours. Stephanie had been sneaking out during the day, claiming she was running errands or at the gym, but it was all a lie. She'd been using the training sessions as cover, and she'd even lied to the team's parents about her whereabouts. It all made me furious. This woman I'd trusted, now just a stranger who thought she could get away with everything. Meanwhile, she kept trying to contact me, calling constantly, leaving messages, begging me to come back to talk and work things out. I didn't answer. What was there to say? That I knew about her affair, that I had proof, that I saw her in that shed with Ryan? No. I was done with her lies. I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. One night, I finally sat down and thought about what I wanted from all of this. I felt betrayed, yes, but I also felt anger that was slowly turning into cold resolve. I knew I'd never trust her again, not after what I'd seen and what I'd uncovered. I had to do what was best for Lily, and that meant ending this toxic, destructive marriage once and for all. I decided I'd file for divorce, seek full custody, and make sure Stephanie paid for her betrayal, whether through legal channels or just by making her suffer in her own way. I also began thinking about what I could do to make her regret everything she'd done. I didn't want to destroy her, but I wanted her to hurt, to understand what she lost. I'd seen the way she looked at Ryan, like he was her savior, her escape. I wondered how she'd feel if she realized I was no longer going to be her safety net, that I'd cut her off completely, and she'd be left with nothing but her own lies and her own stupidity. That's when I started planning my next moves, knowing I'd have to be smart, patient, and relentless. The hardest part was accepting that this was the end of what I thought was a life. The woman I married, the one I trusted, she was gone, replaced by this manipulative, selfish version of herself. The pain was overwhelming, but I knew I had to keep going, for Lily, for myself. I reminded myself that I deserved better than her lies, that someday I'd find peace again, even if it meant starting over from scratch. Sometimes I'd catch myself wondering if I'd done something wrong, if I was the one to blame. But deep down, I knew the truth. Stephanie chose this. She chose Ryan over her own family, over her own daughter, and over me. There's no excuse for that kind of betrayal. I couldn't fix her, and I couldn't live my life constantly second-guessing her lies. So I made the decision. I was walking away for good. And honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. It was the end of a chapter I never thought would end this way. The divorce process was a nightmare, but I knew it was necessary. I worked with a lawyer, gathered every piece of evidence I had, texts, videos, witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking around, and prepared for the fight. I wanted full custody of Lily, and I was determined to make it happen. Stephanie, of course, fought me every step of the way. She played the victim, cried crocodile tears, and tried to make me out to be the bad guy for exposing her. She insisted she was misunderstood and stressed out, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. Her lies became more obvious as the days went on. She refused to admit her affair outright, but her constant denial only made her look worse. She'd try to spin stories about Ryan, about how she was just confused or going through a phase. Meanwhile, she was still sneaking around, still meeting him at that damn field, still lying to everyone. I saw through her act now. I knew she'd been lying from the start, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. In the courtroom, things got even messier. Stephanie tried every trick in the book to turn the judge against me, crying, yelling, claiming I was an unfit father because I spied on her or because I was controlling. But I had the proof, and I made sure it all came out. I presented the videos of her and Ryan in the shed, the texts where she expressed her feelings, the witnesses who confirmed seeing her sneaking out. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some jealous husband. I was the one who had been betrayed, and I had the evidence to prove it. The judge saw through her, though. It was clear she was an unfaithful, manipulative woman who put her own selfish needs ahead of her family. I got full custody of Lily, with supervised visits for Stephanie, if she even deserved that. I knew I'd do everything to protect my daughter from her mother's lies, her manipulation, and her reckless choices. That was my priority now. Once the divorce was finalized and I had custody, I started building a new life for myself. It wasn't easy. I felt this gnawing emptiness, a sense of loss for the woman I thought I knew and for the family I'd believed in. But I also felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken control of my life again. Stephanie's betrayal had shattered everything, but I was determined not to let it define me. I cut all ties with her, blocked her number, and made sure she understood she no longer had any power over me or Lily. I also started therapy to process everything, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger. It helped me realize that I wasn't to blame. She was just a selfish woman who threw away her integrity for some fleeting excitement. That realization was painful, but it also set me free from the guilt I'd been carrying. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes people you love can hurt you in ways you never imagined. I learned to be cautious, to read the signs earlier, and most importantly, to value myself enough to walk away when someone proves they're unworthy of my love. I don't hate her, not anymore. I just feel sorry for her, sorry she threw away her dignity, her marriage, and her family for Ryan and a moment of selfishness. Now I focus on rebuilding. I spend more time with Lily, making sure she feels loved and safe. I've started dating again, cautiously, but I know I'll never settle for someone who lies or cheats. I've learned my lesson the hard way, and I want other guys out there to understand this. If you find out your wife is cheating, don't let her manipulate you. Stand up, gather your proof, and do what's best for you and your kids. Because nobody should have to live in a lie, and nobody deserves to be betrayed like I was. Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in the idea of a perfect marriage, in honesty, loyalty, and trust. Turned out, sometimes people hide their real selves behind a mask, and when that mask slips, it's like discovering the whole thing was a lie. Stephanie's betrayal was a brutal wake-up call, but it also forced me to see what I truly value: my integrity, my daughter's safety, and my own well-being. Having gone through all this, I've become more cautious, more guarded, but also more resilient. I don't let people get too close too fast anymore. I've learned to spot the signs of trouble before they blow up in my face. And I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, no matter how painful it is, to save what's left of your sanity and dignity. My relationship with Lily has become even more important. She's still young, but I want her to see that even when life throws you the worst curveball, you can survive, you can rebuild, and you can come out stronger. I've made it my mission to be the kind of dad who's there for her, who teaches her that no matter what happens, she's loved and valued. As for Stephanie, I honestly don't hold any anger anymore, just a deep disappointment. She threw away her marriage, her integrity, and her reputation, all for fleeting sex and a moment of excitement. I hope someday she figures out what she lost, but I'm not going to wait around for that. I've moved on, focused on my own healing, and I've started to rebuild a new normal for myself. The biggest lesson I've learned in all this is that betrayal cuts deep, but you don't have to let it destroy you. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to realize that your worth isn't tied to someone who doesn't respect you. I'm stronger now because of it. I've accepted that I can't control other people's choices, but I can control how I respond to them. For anyone going through something similar, trust me, I know it's the hardest thing you'll ever face. But don't stay in a situation where you're being lied to or betrayed. Find your strength, gather your evidence, and do what's best for you and your kids. Life is too short to waste on people who don't deserve your love and loyalty. Keep your dignity, hold your head high, and remember, there's light after the storm.